Hi, everybody. This is Drew Decker here from U.S. Geological Survey. I'm a national map liaison and also acting lead for WBD. Welcome to today's October call. This is the first hydro community call held without LRA's management and guidance, but hopefully we can keep things afloat a while. I think without any further ado, Becci, are you ready?
Sure, yeah. So back in the August in the August call, Al and I talked about the 3D hydrography program. And while we were talking, there were quite a few questions in the chat. And we said that we would get back to those when we could, and we couldn't in September because Al was doing his victory lap on the call and giving us an awesome rundown of the changes in hydrography over the years. But now I thought I'd get back to those. So I have a list of the questions we had. I'm just going to read some answers because we have two other presentations today. We don't have time for additional questions. But if you guys are interested, you could put this in the chat if you're interested in having a whole nother presentation or just a session on 3DHP, a Q&A, we could do that sometime. So let me just read through the questions and answers from this, and then we'll move on to our other two very important presentations. All right, so the first one, will local stewards' expertise remain involved? Yes, local knowledge and expertise will definitely continue to be an important part of mapping the hydrography of the US, and we're really currently discussing the best means of involving local knowledge with the 3DHP. So there's a lot we're still talking through and trying to figure out as we work on the call for action, which is basically our program plan. So more to come on that, but we will be working and talking directly with the stewards and all our current NHD and WBD stewards, but I'll make a plug for a project where you guys can get involved in just a minute related to that. Next question, what relationship does USGS CONED have with this proposed data plan? USGS CONED is a part of the 3D NTM, so the 3D National Topography Model pilot in Southeast Texas. And of course, 3D Hydrography Program is the hydrography component to this bigger idea called the 3D National Topography Model. So the scientists who work on CONED are involved in the research and planning for the 3D National Topography Model. So we're definitely tightly linked with Jeff Danielson and others who are working on that. Considering those states who are collecting and processing their own elevation-derived hydrography in compliance with the new elevation-derived hydrography specs, how might those projects be impacted under 3D NTM? Specifically, will we be able to continue acquiring and processing our elevation-derived hydrography data for eventual completion to the NHD? USGS would like all elevation-derived hydrography that meets USGS standards to be conflated into the NHD and eventually into the 3HP data sets. It's expected that elevation-derived hydrography specifications will become a part of the 3DHP specifications, so it'll roll into and be a primary component of that. We are just, again, kind of setting up processes internally to figure out how we will work contributed data, for example. So if you were to go through our contracts, our GIPSY contracts, inspection of the data is a part of that process. But if you aren't using those contracts, you will be able to still contribute data. But we're trying to work out what that inspection workflow will look like because it won't be coming through a contracting process. So more to come on that. Is it the intent to stick with IFSAR as the primary 3DHP source in Alaska, or will it be brought into alignment with the rest of the nation via a minimum of QL2 LiDAR? 3DEP will provide base data for 3DHP. In Alaska, statewide 3DEP data was collected using IFSAR due to complications with LiDAR because of the vast size of the state and weather and cloud cover. Whether or not 3DEP will collect higher resolution data in Alaska is a separate topic, and we could invite 3DEP to discuss that with the group if you guys are interested in that. And as many of you know, I live in Alaska, and it is simply not possible right now to cover the whole state with LiDAR. So we'll see going forward, but do let us know if you're interested in hearing more from the 3DEP group, because we can have them come and talk with you about anything about their program at any time if you're interested. Is this effort coordinated with the NHD activities to build a 3D National Hydrography dataset? All right, this is where I said I was going to put in a plug here in a bit. So yes, the NHD 3D HP for the Nation project, so it was called formerly EDH for 3D NHD. That was the old name of the project. It's been rebranded as 3D HP for the Nation. That's a cooperative project with the USGS. So the USGS is actually funding that project through a cooperative agreement. And we've been working together for about the last year to co-develop that project and its activities. So absolutely, yes. And just a note about the term 3D National Hydrography Dataset, we're no longer using that term. Instead, we're just using the term 3D HP or 3D Hydrography Program datasets. And that's to reflect that we've moved on from just simply a set of data sets to a more programmatic approach, more similar to what 3DEP does. And also we're kind of evolving. We're building on what we did with the NHD, but we're evolving from that. And so it makes sense to kind of move on with new branding for that as well at this time. Are you adding hydrostratigraphic layers / elevation surfaces underground? We're just beginning to conceptualize exactly how to make the linkages to groundwater. The focus initially will be more on enabling some kind of defined exchange points or features where information could be exchanged between the hydrography and groundwater models. But this would be a really great research topic for the 3D National Topography Model, where we're really looking at taking elevation hydrography and really moving that into more of a 3D space. So that is a really good question going forward. But we don't have plans for that at this time. You may want to add sinks to the list of generated data. Those are very important for QA of the final surface model. Filled areas and sinks are already a part of NHD plus HR, NHD plus high resolution, and these are being considered as a part of future 3D HP data sets. The question will be, we generate a lot of data when we are building out kind of products like 3D HP or NHD plus HR, and the question is, what of those do we distribute? So that would be good to hear from people if they're interested in that being something that's distributed. Is the vertical datum NAVD 88 HARN, is there a minimum size on water bodies needing bathymetry elevations? So datums are complicated. They're going to get even more complicated in the next couple of years. In general, we'll try to match 3D HP, the 3D HP program on the datum, but we'll need to settle on a single datum for a given version of 3D HP because we need all of the data to be seamless nationally. And I think I missed or we lost the second part of that answer. So is there a minimum size on water bodies? So we'll have to come back to that sometime. And I see Prosper is currently for the Pacific Northwest. Plan is to expand to the entire nation. Does this model predict intermittent flow segments? Big deal in the Southwest. Prosper estimates probability of stream flow permanence for all streams, and it's being expanded to the upper Missouri River Basin right now. Those data will be published soon. There's a lot of interest in expanding it for similar models of stream flow permanence to cover more of the country, but nothing actually planned or funded that we know of. But of course, this research takes place with Prosper in the Water Mission area and the water science centers. So there could be work we don't know about, but also put in a quick plug for FLOPER, which is a field application for stream flow permanence that is being developed kind of through both ecosystems and the Water Mission area and the science centers that are related. So that's exciting too. So check out FLOPER as well. So that's it for me, Drew, and we can move on to the next piece.
Okay, thank you very much. If Kevin, McNinch, and Annalisa Stacy are ready, we can begin with your two presentations.
Okay, this is Kevin. I'm going to start.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, so I'm Kevin McNinch, and I work at the National Geospatial Technical Operations Center. And one of the things I work on is data models and help with hydrography data in general as an applied researcher. One of the things that we're doing recently, and we've announced this last month, is that we have published new data models for NHD and WBD. The changes that we want you to be aware of are that we have changed all the attribute names for feature classes and tables to lowercase. This is a change from previous where we had managed them kind of in a different ways over the years, but the last set of data for NHD 2.3 and WB 2.3 were camel case, which we've retained that camel case representation, and we've added that as an attribute alias to all of the feature classes and tables. So what does this look like a little bit? And you can kind of see at the bottom of this picture here, this is the difference. So we have the attribute names changed from permanent identifier with a capital P and a capital I to all lowercase. And then the attribute alias on the right of the table, that's what it'll look like in the future. But so kind of why do we do this? Well, we have had some underlying data management database in the background, the way we manage our data. We've changed and had some underlying changes there. We have been adding over the years new products and new services, and we have some even new file formats coming along. We're going to tease the GeoPackage here, but we're actually not going to talk about it, but we are looking at GeoPackage for the future. And with all these different types of data and different services, and the way we have data checkouts for editing, and we have stage products for distributing the data and the map services, we wanted to come up with one way to have our attribute names instead of having a bunch of changes and having them different in different places. So we have settled on this where we have lowercase attribute names with the camel case as an alias. So what does this look like? Here's some screenshots if you're looking at this in ArcMap. If you look at these tables, if you look at like a table, attribute table, or identify results, you actually won't see any changes. This will still display with the camel case name as is in the alias, but the actual underlying data behind it, they are lowercase. So you can get in and see that in this screenshot from our catalog. If you go to the fields and the layer properties, you can see that the alias at the top of this, this is what the alias is, and then the name is all under lowercase. So really, we wanted to talk about what this means also for the future. So this is NHD 2.31 and WBD 2.31 have been released, and you will start to see those as data is processed, and some of the data is already out there. Some of the things haven't been updated, but some of the stage products you will get now actually do have these changes. And as we go forward, we're also going to be updating the NHD Plus high-res data model as well. And this long name, this NHD Plus HRVPU distribution data model, is the name of that data model, but this will incorporate those changes as well for any new products. We are not going to go back and change the existing NHD Plus high-res products, but new products published after this change went into effect will have those changes in them. And the map services for NHD and WBD, those map services that you can get, those will start to change as well. The WBD is actually already changed. The NHD will change with the next release, which is expected sometime in this first quarter of FY22, which is sometime soon. So the impacts of this, as I've kind of alluded to earlier, is the vast majority of people using these data will not see any changes. If you're using the data sets or the services within Esri products, everything will continue to work as it did before. You won't have to update any maps or geoprocessing tools or projects. You won't have to really do anything. It'll just keep working. If you have used custom scripts in Python or R or JavaScript that are outside of the Esri world or even incorporated in the Esri world, but if you've used Python code that actually references attribute names, you will be impacted by this, and you may encounter some issues with the code depending on how you've written the code. So that's what really the big reason for this announcement is to make sure everybody's aware of that. If you have some custom code, not geoprocessing scripts or the things that use, are within the Esri environment, but if you actually have written code that explicitly references attribute names, you may need to be aware of this. So we do some examples in here. So if you've done something like this example, there's some Python code. It doesn't really matter exactly what it is, but the idea is if you have tested for a field name in your code and use the representation in this case, in camel case, you may have an issue. Depending on where you're running the code and how it is executed, you may or may not have an issue. Probably will, but it may not. But anyway, in this case, for NHD 2.31, this will not find this example. It will because of the casing of the attribute name, it will not find it. So if you look at this code, kind of the same code, but we looking at just the right side, kind of ignore the yellow box for now. If we test for the same attribute name with lowercase name as it is in 2.31, it'll find it. But we do suggest that you do something like this lowercase evaluation when you're looking at names anyway. It's probably a good best practice for coding to kind of ignore casing as the best you can and use something like a lowercase function on any variable names. Or even beyond that, you could actually go farther and even use variables or constants in your code for names anyway. It's probably a good idea to do that because names and databases change sometimes, and it's best in your code to find ways to minimize those impacts. And that's the summary of that change. So Annalisa is now going to talk about the folder changes that we have coming as well.
If we have plenty of time, we could go ahead and cover any questions now.
This is Jim Mitchell in Louisiana. We're at the bottom of everybody's watershed. I was wondering if you have made any effort to update the Huck downstream information.
Are you referring to the 2-Huck?
Yeah, the 2-Huck.
Yeah, so so it depends on the area. This is Lily, by the way. As we run into areas that need to have 2-Hucks updated, whether we get them through like the markup application or an email from you, for example, we kind of take those on a case-by-case basis. If there are some specific hydrologic units that you're looking to have the 2-Hucks updated in, you can just send me an email. We did a national review of the 2-Huck codes. I think it was about 2 years ago. Since then, we haven't done a national sweep. So if anything has changed, if any outlets have been updated since then it might need to be reviewed again.
One of the real issues we deal with in coastal areas are on those, offshore units. Sometimes there's more than one direction water can go, right? You can go laterally, go down. That's just a data model issue.
Yeah, thank you, Lily.
And there is a question in the chat. Will the attribute cases be changed to all lowercase in job checkouts as well as the downloaded data?
Yes, that is true. All new checkouts will have that lowercase.
Thank you, Drew. Any other questions? Let's go ahead and move on into the next presentation.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you all for the questions. I'm going to discuss upcoming changes to downloadable hydrography products folder structure. So good morning. My name is Annalisa Stacy. I'm a cartographer with the Hydrography Partner Support Section at the National Geospatial Technical Operations Center. I serve as the distribution data product owner for NHD and NHD plus HR. Today I will discuss some upcoming changes to the hydrography stage products folder structure. I'm sure many of you are familiar with our National Hydrography webpage. The Access National Hydrography Products tab along the left-hand side displays the different ways to access various national hydrography products, including the National Map Downloader, National Map Web Services, and direct download links for NHD, NHD plus HR, and WBD products. The first option shown here is to use the National Map Downloader. We encourage everyone to use the National Map Downloader to download hydrography products. And if you do, you will not notice a change. If you scroll down on this page, there are other options for accessing the data. There are links to stage products. In these links, there will be changes to the organization of the stage products. These are the changes I will discuss today. When you scroll down the page, you can download data by direct link. There will soon be changes to the way the data is organized within these links. Here are the direct download links to hydrography products, including NHD plus HR, NHD, and WBD. For NHD, you can download data by HU4, HU8, state, or for the entire nation. These links will bring you to the Amazon Web Services bucket where the data is stored. These links will change. We will update the links, but if you access them through a script, tool, or application, you will need to be aware of these changes. These changes are necessary to support additional product versions for NHD plus HR and a new GeoPackage product format. Here we see the current stage products folder structure. For NHD, products are organized first by product type and second by format type. As part of the upcoming directory restructure, we will be removing the high resolution folder to make it less confusing to download hydrography products. We will also add a geopackage folder that will house new geopackage products once they are released. Here we see the current stage products folder directory for NHD plus HR. As part of the upcoming changes, we are going to remove the beta folder from the folder hierarchy and replace it with a VPU folder. Inside the VPU folder, there will be a current and archive folder. All current data will be written to the current folder and moved to the archive folder as it is refreshed. We will also be adding a geopackage folder and writing data to this folder as it is produced. We will be moving all raster data to the new raster folder. Here we see a model of the new folder structure changes we will be implementing over the next few months. The red X's indicate folders that are being removed. The green hatched folders indicate new folders that are being added. For NHD, we will remove the high resolution folders and add geopackage folders as this data is produced. This will make downloading NHD data less confusing. For NHD plus HR, we will remove the beta folder and replace it with a VPU folder containing current and archive folders. Existing data will be placed in the current folder and moved to archive as it is refreshed. We will also be populating the geopackage folder as this data is produced. Raster data will now be contained in a separate raster folder. These changes will benefit our users in several ways. First, there will be less confusion between the downloads of NHD and NHD plus HR products. Second, by removing the high resolution folder, it will be easier to access NHD data. Third, NHD and NHD plus HR will be released in the geopackage format over the coming months. Future geopackage products will be written to a new geopackage folder as they are published. We will be rolling out more information on this new format as we get closer to implementation. And last, these changes are needed to support the new product versions for NHD plus HR, which will soon be released. Take note, URLs are changing, so you will need to update your tools, scripts, and applications. Here are some examples of what the changes will look like in the URLs. In the NHD example, we see the current URL. We are removing the high resolution folder from the file hierarchy, so this will disappear. Here is the new NHD download link. The NHD plus HR has changes for both the vector and raster files. Here we see URLs for vector and raster NHD plus HR data. As you can see, if you have the directory structure embedded in a script or code, there are changes that might affect your code. The changes to the hydrography stage products folder structure should occur over the next few months. The folder structure change will occur before the geopackage format is implemented. We will provide additional details on the geopackage file format for NHD and NHD plus HR as we get closer to implementing these changes. Don't worry, this won't be a major change for most users. Users who access product URLs through scripting processes will be affected, but the changes are relatively minor. So to summarize, for NHD, the high resolution folder will be removed from the folder hierarchy. For NHD plus HR, the beta folder will be replaced by a VPU folder containing a current and archive folder. Existing beta products will be migrated to the current folder and later moved to the archive folder as new versions are released. Data will be migrated to a new raster folder. Lastly, future geopackage products will be written to a new geopackage folder as they are published. Thank you.
Thank you, Annalisa.
Yeah, thanks so much, Annalisa. We have a couple questions in the chat. When will the pre-staged state extracts downloads be updated? The majority of them have not been updated since June 2020. So a note about that, we do not have an ETA that I know of right now for correcting the issue with state extracts, but I wanted to note that we are having an additional issue instead with regenerating the Huck 4s and 8s for the NHD downloadable products. Normally these regenerate every single month, and it's taking a bit longer than that. So we're right now actually investigating that with the slowdown with just the 4s and the 8s while looking into the state products. And if anybody from NG Talk would like to comment on that further, please do. But I just wanted to make sure people were aware of that because we put it in the newsletter and I wasn't sure if people had seen it. So
that's correct, Becky. We are our dev team is currently working on addressing the HU4 and HU8 products, and we have a new system coming online that should hopefully address some of those problems. Once that's done, then we will be looking at the statewide products. There is the ability to create your own statewide product yourself, and we have documentation on how to do that on the HDC that we'll be glad to provide to whomever might need that. So reach out to us, nhd@usgs.gov, and we'll give that to you.
There was another question too. Any plans to offer AK and CONUS as separate downloads? Not at this time that I know of, unless there's something in the works. We basically we're starting to pivot and really focus on completing an update of NHD plus HR, kind of a post-beta CONUS update, as well as starting to look at 3D HP and how we move to it. So right now we're, trying to make sure that we keep fulfilling everything that we've always done with the NHD and the WBD, but aren't really planning new work with creating different products with those data sets right now, just because we are full to the brim with work going forward right now. So it's a great idea, but unless somebody else knows of plans for that I don't know of, I don't think we've got that in the works right now.
Okay. Well, there are no further questions. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Becky, Kevin, Annalise, Vanessa. Thank you very much for your time and help today. I do have one thing I want to mention too. We'll have a call. These are monthly calls. The plan is to tentatively, I believe, at least combine the months of November and December. So we'd have one call covering both months. At the moment, we are looking at either November 30th or the December 7th for the next call. We'll get a notice out on that. And the topic will be on HydroAd and will be presented by Michael Tinker with us at USGS. And so I'll get the placeholder and calendar announcement out soon and provide more details as well. So.
All right, I think we're good, Drew. Yeah, make sure you join us next month. HydroAd is a new online tool that's basically the new version of Chem tool. So it's pretty exciting stuff that we've been working on, that NG Talk's been working on with that. So thanks, everybody. Take care.